Welcome back to B&B Spoilers channel. Today we will learn about the explosive family drama brewing at Forrester Creations as Ridge Forrester once again attempts to push his legendary father Eric Forrester into an unwanted retirement, threatening to tear apart the very foundation of the fashion empire that has defined their family legacy for decades. The storm clouds are gathering over Forrester Creations as Ridge Forrester finds himself on a collision course with his father Eric Forrester over the sensitive topic of retirement. This isn't just a simple disagreement between father and son, it's a battle for control, respect, and the future direction of one of fashion's most prestigious houses. Ridge's persistent attempts to convince Eric to step away from the company he built from the ground up are rubbing the family patriarch completely the wrong way, creating a rift that could have devastating consequences for everyone involved. What makes this situation particularly frustrating is that Ridge should absolutely know better by now. This isn't uncharted territory for the Forrester family. They've walked this exact path before with disastrous results. Ridge appears to be a remarkably slow learner when it comes to understanding his father's needs and desires. And this character flaw extends far beyond his notoriously complicated romantic entanglements with Brooke and Taylor. His professional judgment seems equally clouded, as he fails to recognize that forcing retirement on someone who isn't ready is not only disrespectful, but potentially harmful to the company's creative vision and operational stability. The history between Eric and Ridge on this particular issue is loaded with tension and unresolved feelings. Fans will remember the painful period when Eric received a terminal diagnosis that shook the entire Forrester family to its core. During that dark time, Ridge made the controversial decision to aggressively push his father to leave Forrester Creations and spend his remaining days enjoying life away from the pressures of the fashion industry. While Ridge's intentions may have been rooted in love and concern, his approach was heavy-handed and dismissive of Eric's own wishes and sense of purpose. That earlier conflict escalated into serious bad blood between father and son, culminating in an intense fashion designer showdown that had the entire company taking sides. The competition wasn't just about designs and fabric choices, it was a battle for dignity, respect, and the right to determine one's own path. Eric fought back with everything he had, refusing to let his son dictate the terms of his exit from the company he had poured his heart and soul into building. The tension during that period was palpable, with every family gathering and board meeting becoming a potential battlefield. The resolution to that earlier conflict came when Ridge finally learned the full truth about Eric's medical diagnosis and the severity of his condition. In a rare moment of humility and compassion, Ridge chose to let Eric believe he had won their competition fair and square, refusing to diminish his father's victory by revealing that he had intentionally held back. This gesture of respect and love touched Eric profoundly. He confided that it was perhaps the kindest and most meaningful thing anyone had ever done for him in his entire life. The symbolic return of Eric's coveted stapler, that small but significant object representing his authority and position at Forrester Creations, seemed to mark the end of their conflict and the restoration of their relationship. But that peace was apparently short-lived and fragile. Eric made a miraculous full recovery that defied all medical expectations, emerging from his health crisis with renewed vigor and a profound appreciation for life. He's now living his best life alongside his beloved honey bear, Donna Logan Forrester, embracing every moment with the enthusiasm of someone who has been given a precious second chance. Eric is energized, creative, and more committed than ever to the company he founded and nurtured through decades of challenges and triumphs. Yet during the week of December 1st to 5th, Ridge inexplicably decides to resurrect this toxic pattern of behavior by once again telling Eric that it's time to climb aboard the retirement train. Ridge's approach is pushy and patronizing, suggesting that Eric should spend his days playing golf, traveling, or engaging in whatever leisurely activities retired people typically pursue. He paints a picture of a peaceful, relaxed retirement that sounds more like exile from the world Eric loves than a reward for a lifetime of achievement. But Eric is having absolutely none of it, pushing back forcefully against his son's unwelcome interference in his life choices. The question that hangs over this entire conflict is troubling. How desperately does Ridge want that legacy stapler for himself? The evidence suggests he wants it badly enough to risk another destructive family war. Eric is the visionary founder who turned Forrester Creations from a dream into a global fashion powerhouse, yet Ridge seems determined to force him out of the very company that bears his name. Ridge's persistence in urging Eric toward retirement reveals an underlying hunger for complete control and recognition as the definitive leader of the Forrester fashion empire. What Ridge fails to understand or chooses to ignore is that Eric doesn't want to retire, and he has every right to make that choice for himself. Eric nearly died, an experience that fundamentally transformed his perspective on life, work, and legacy. Rather than making him want to slow down and fade away, his brush with mortality has empowered him to live his life to the absolute fullest. This doesn't include tolerating interference from his whiny, entitled son, who seems to think he knows what's best for everyone around him. Eric has earned the right to determine his own path forward, and Ridge's inability to respect that autonomy is both insulting and potentially damaging to their relationship. Eric now has a precious second chance to cement his legacy at Forrester Creations, an opportunity that carries special weight and significance given the recent internal co-launched by Hope Logan and Carter Walton. That betrayal and power grab should have united the Forrester family in defense of their heritage, but instead, Ridge is creating division at the worst possible moment. Eric wants to prove that he still has the creative vision, business acumen, and leadership skills to guide Forrester Creations into its next chapter. But Ridge sees the situation through a completely different lens. Ridge's perspective appears to be colored by his own ambitions and desires, possibly fueled by his recent romantic reunion with Brooke Logan. Now that he's back with Brooke and feeling secure in his personal life, Ridge may secretly harbor aspirations to become the undisputed top dog at Forrester Creations, consolidating all power and authority under his own control. His campaign to push Eric into retirement might be less about concern for his father's well-being and more about clearing the path for his own ascension to absolute leadership. The central question that fans and family members alike must grapple with is whether Eric should be forced into retirement against his will. From a business perspective, Eric brings decades of experience, industry relationships, and creative wisdom that would be impossible to replace. His name still carries enormous weight in the fashion world, and his continued presence at Forrester Creations provides stability and continuity during turbulent times. From a personal standpoint, forcing someone who is healthy, capable, and passionate about their work into unwanted retirement is both cruel and counterproductive. Tantalizing spoilers indicate that the back-and-forth battle between Eric and Ridge is about to escalate to a genuinely dangerous level, with consequences that could extend far beyond hurt feelings and damaged egos. The conflict between father and son threatens to destabilize Forrester Creations all over again, potentially creating vulnerabilities that enemies and competitors could exploit. When the leadership of a company is divided and distracted by internal warfare, the entire organization suffers, from the design teams to the sales force to the brand reputation in the marketplace. The parallels to their previous showdown are impossible to ignore, but this time the stakes may be even higher. Eric has already survived one near-death experience and one forced retirement attempt. He's unlikely to be patient or forgiving if Ridge continues down this destructive path. Ridge, meanwhile, seems willing to risk everything for control, even if it means alienating his father and dividing the family at a time when unity should be their highest priority. The question isn't whether this conflict will explode into open warfare, but rather how much damage will be done before someone finally backs down or the family intervenes to impose peace. Next, we will learn about the issue of Matthew Atkinson's explosive return to the bold and the beautiful and what his comeback could mean for Hope Logan and Liam Spencer's upcoming wedding celebration during the holiday season. The beloved CBS daytime drama has built a cherished tradition over the years of welcoming familiar faces back to the canvas during the festive Christmas period. And this December promises to deliver something truly special for longtime viewers. Matthew Atkinson, who portrays the complex and often controversial Thomas Forrester, is set to make his highly anticipated return to Los Angeles just as the holidays approach. The timing of his arrival raises countless questions and concerns. particularly because it perfectly aligns with one of the most talked about events in recent bold and beautiful history, the long-awaited wedding ceremony between Hope Logan and Liam Spencer. Affectionately known to fans as Lope, this romantic reunion has been years in the making, with the couple overcoming numerous obstacles and heartbreaks to finally reach this moment of commitment. However, Thomas's sudden reappearance in town threatens to cast a dark shadow over what should be Hope's happiest day, leaving viewers wondering whether their daughter Beth remembered to include her mother's most persistent admirer on the band guest list for the intimate ceremony. The twisted tale of Thomas's obsession. Thomas Forrester's disturbing and unhealthy fixation on Hope Logan has become one of the most extensively documented storylines in the Bold and the Beautiful's rich history, spanning nearly a full decade of manipulation, schemes, and psychological warfare. Matthew Atkinson has masterfully brought to life this deeply troubled character whose actions have ranged from merely questionable to downright disturbing, earning him a permanent place in soap opera infamy. The actor's portrayal has been so convincing that fans still haven't forgotten the infamous mannequin incident that shocked audiences worldwide, a bizarre chapter where Thomas purchased a lifelike doll resembling Hope and engaged in conversations with it as if it were a real person, demonstrating just how far his obsession had spiraled into dangerous territory. This creepy behavior became a defining moment for the character, one that viewers reference whenever discussing Thomas's mental stability and his capacity for rational decision-making when it comes to the object of his affection. The pattern of Thomas's behavior toward Hope has been marked by intense cycles of progress and regression, making him one of the most unpredictable characters on the canvas. Just when it seems he has finally moved past his unhealthy attachment and begun to heal, something triggers a setback that sends him spiraling back into his old patterns of obsessive thinking. Last year marked what appeared to be a significant turning point in Thomas's journey when he made the difficult but necessary decision to finally abandon his long-held dream of marrying Hope Logan and relocate to Paris, France, to start fresh away from the constant reminders of what he could never have. This geographical distance seemed to provide the breathing room Thomas desperately needed to work on himself and potentially develop healthier relationship patterns. Now imagine the psychological impact of returning home after this extended absence only to discover that the woman who repeatedly rejected his marriage proposals is now preparing to walk down the aisle with her ex-husband, the same man she divorced years ago. Thomas's fragile mental state. Throughout his time on The Bold and the Beautiful, Thomas Forrester has consistently exhibited signs of serious psychological instability that manifests in unpredictable and often alarming ways. Dedicated viewers have witnessed firsthand how Thomas operates on a spectrum that ranges from being remarkably insightful and emotionally balanced to completely unhinged and potentially dangerous, with very little warning before he switches between these two extremes. His mental health struggles are well established, and certain situations act as powerful triggers that can instantly destabilize his carefully maintained composure. The last significant appearance Thomas made in Los Angeles before his Paris departure involved a deeply disturbing incident where he attempted to physically assault his stepmother, Brooke Logan, in a fit of rage, demonstrating how quickly his emotional state can deteriorate when he feels threatened or betrayed. This violent outburst occurred during another one of his psychological breaks. This particular episode triggered by unresolved childhood trauma surrounding his parents' failed marriage and his father Ridge's choice not to permanently commit to his biological mother, Taylor Hayes. Wedding ceremonies have proven to be especially problematic events for Thomas, serving as powerful catalysts that activate his deepest insecurities and unresolved emotional wounds. The combination of romantic commitment, family dynamics, and his own unfulfilled desires creates a perfect storm of psychological pressure that Thomas has repeatedly proven unable to handle with grace or maturity. These formal celebrations of love trigger something primal within him, awakening all the rejection, abandonment, and inadequacy he has tried so desperately to suppress. Given this established pattern of behavior and his documented history of wedding-related meltdowns, there is substantial reason for concern about what might happen if Thomas finds himself anywhere near Hope and Liam's ceremony. especially considering the deeply personal nature of this particular union and what it represents about his own failures in the romantic arena. The wedding that could change everything. According to the latest spoilers circulating among the bold and the beautiful fan community, Hope and Liam's daughter Beth is going to play a pivotal role in accelerating her parents' wedding timeline this month. The young girl, desperate to see her family united and living under one roof again, will actively push for an immediate ceremony rather than waiting for an elaborate, carefully planned celebration months down the road. Given that the entire Forrester, Logan, and Spencer families will already be gathered together for the Christmas holidays, it creates the perfect opportunity to organize an intimate, spontaneous wedding celebration without the usual months of preparation that traditional ceremonies require. The convenience of having all their loved ones already assembled in one place makes a quickie wedding not just practical, but almost inevitable, allowing Hope and Liam to finally formalize their reunion without unnecessary delays. Adding another layer of urgency to the situation is the devastating news about Eric Forrester's declining health condition, which will undoubtedly impact Hope's decision-making about the wedding timeline. When Hope learns the full extent of the family patriarch's terminal diagnosis and realizes that his time may be limited, she will almost certainly want to exchange vows while Eric is still healthy enough to witness and participate in the joyous occasion. The thought of getting married without the beloved Forrester patriarch present would be unthinkable for Hope, who has always shared a special bond with Eric and values his presence in all her major life moments. This emotional factor will likely override any desire for an elaborate ceremony, making a simple, heartfelt wedding in the Forrester living room far more appealing than a grand event scheduled months in the future when Eric might no longer be with them. Thomas's return and potential chaos. The probability that Thomas Forrester's return to Los Angeles will perfectly coincide with Hope and Liam's wedding ceremony appears extremely high based on typical soap opera storytelling, conventions, and the dramatic potential such timing would create. The show's writers rarely miss opportunities to maximize conflict and tension, and having Thomas arrive just as Hope is about to marry another man would generate explosive drama that fans have come to expect from sweeps periods. The real question isn't whether Thomas will be present during the wedding festivities, but rather what his reaction will be when he realizes what's happening and how far he might go to express his feelings about the situation. Will Thomas have genuinely healed during his time away in Paris, allowing him to gracefully accept Hope's choice and offer his sincere congratulations like a mature adult? Or will the sight of Hope in a wedding dress, preparing to pledge her life to Liam Spencer, trigger another one of his infamous psychological breaks that leads to destructive behavior? The possibility of Thomas causing a dramatic scene and actively attempting to prevent Hope from completing her vows represents a very real threat that everyone should be concerned about. His history of impulsive, emotionally driven actions during moments of crisis suggests that he might not be able to simply stand by and watch the woman he has obsessed over for years marry someone else. Could Thomas storm into the ceremony at the crucial moment when the officiant asks if anyone objects to the union, dramatically declaring his own feelings and begging Hope to reconsider? Might he try to privately convince Hope before the ceremony that she's making a terrible mistake and that Liam will only hurt her again? Or could his reaction be even more extreme, potentially involving some form of sabotage or manipulation designed to derail the entire event before it can be completed? The stakes have never been higher for Hope, Liam, and Thomas as this holiday season approaches. Beth's innocent desire to see her parents married, Eric's fragile health situation, and Thomas's unpredictable return create a volatile combination of factors that could either result in a beautiful family celebration or absolute catastrophe. Bold and beautiful fans should prepare themselves for intense drama, emotional confrontations, and possibly shocking twists as this storyline unfolds throughout December. Whether Thomas has truly conquered his demons during his time abroad or remains the same troubled man who left Los Angeles remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, his presence during this wedding will have consequences that ripple throughout the entire Forrester family for months to come.